much for the community. Is anybody doing anything to award or recognize you?
Well, the museum produced the Voices of History tour in conjunction with Antenna Audio. And this year it won a silver medal in the competition in the History and Culture category of the American Association of Museums Muse Award. This is an international award, actually. They had 138 applicants or entries for this award. There were 4 gold, 8 silver, and I think a certain number of honorable mentions. And we received one of the silver awards for our sign language guide.
Oh, that is so
beautiful,
great.
Beautiful. You do so much for the community. You purchased all the property in the block.
Absolutely.
And you're going to do what with that property?
Okay, we've purchased all of the properties in the 1600 block of East North Avenue. We've purchased half of the properties in the 1500 block of East North Avenue. And through the Mayor's Blight Elimination Program, we acquired 53 properties in the rear of the museum. So the plan for all of this is that we are going to expand the museum along the 1600 block. We'll be creating a commercial district of tourism-related businesses in the 1500 block. And then our shared museum community aspect of this in the rear of the museum. If you look at this as a small rectangle within a larger rectangle, the larger rectangle is the community. And so that's the residential areas that will remain on Broadway, Lafayette, Bond Street. In between that are alleyways that we would share, and the museum hired a landscape architect. We came up with the landscape plan for those alleyways that would be a part of the shared museum community space. We went to the community years ago and asked them if Great Blacks in Wax were sharing your space, what would you like to see happen? And they said that they didn't want to feel hemmed in by the museum. So we hired the landscape architect and came up with a fencing strategy. The residents of the community chose the fencing that they desired. It has lattice, so it opens it up. We chose wrought iron for ours so that you don't get that hemmed in space. The fencing that they chose as a community, I would not have chosen. And so they have to live here, they have to live with it much more than I do. So giving them some input, and that's very much a part of, and at the heart of this project, that community development and cultural development go hand in hand, which as you know, it's Dr. Elmer Martin in his finest form.
Yeah, that's great that you involve the community in the continuation of the museum, because that's what keeps it going as the community.
Exactly. From the very beginning, when we had children from the community ending up on our doors asking about jobs, then we came to understand that we couldn't operate as an island within this community. That we had to open the museum up to the youth of this community and to the parents, and that's what we've set about doing. And it became our mission to make sure that we were not these outsiders looking in this community, but that we were very much a part of the future and the well-being of the community.
That's great. Now, is the Great Blacks in Wax Museum, National Great Blacks Wax Museum, are they offering classes or teaching workshops to the community?
We do a number of workshops for residents, for children. We just finished a project, and we just finished a project with Lamel Middle School.
I went to Lamel.
Those youth were wonderful. It was From These Roots, Learn to Earn. And the project involved having them learn the history in the museum, but also learn the history that emanates from this museum, so that they learn about a Mother Mary Lang, lived and worked and started the oblates at St. Francis Academy, and then take a tour of the St. Francis Academy. Learn how the visitor center works, and learn how you have to promote the Preakness. to get people to come and be interested in it. So there were 12 students, I think, in that program, and it was a 6-week program, and it was our first time working with Lamel, but it was a positive experience for us all, and we're looking to get it going with more children next year. In a few months, we'll be starting our Tracing Your Roots program, which is also a middle school program, and the children will be learning about the history in their own backyard. That their East Baltimore community is steeped with history. They'll be learning how to do a web search, to do a genealogical search to find out who they are and who their ancestors were. And then we have a program for high school youth, an internship program, and they are paid by the Mayor's Office of Economic Development.
I know listeners, our viewers would love to know more about how they can get tickets and admission to the museum, but we're going to do that as soon as we take a short break. And after that break, we'll be right back with that good information on how you can bring a group to the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. You're going to tell us how people can get groups to come into the museum, but you won your award for creating a program for deaf people. So if there are groups that have handicaps or multiple handicaps, you make yourself accessible to them.
Right. We our sign language guide. The audio tour involves 4 different parts. Mm-hmm. So there's the adult teen tour. There's a tour for children pre-K through 3rd grade. There's a tour, a specialized audio descriptive tour for the blind and visually impaired, and then there's a sign language guide for the deaf and hard of hearing.
That is one. No wonder you won an award, a silver medal.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You deserve that. Now tell people how they can get to the museum and spend some time here and some money.
Definitely. Well, they can call our reservation line 410-563-3404. They can go online to www.greatblacksinwax.org. They can fax 410-675-5040.
And you have discounts for senior?
We have discounts for groups of 10 or more.
We're going to put it on the screen. Don't worry about it.
So call for the information, and somebody will give you the information for Founders Day, and come out and enjoy Founders Day. Hey, you can't beat it for $1.
$1? I got my dollar right here.
Yeah, I got 5.
And so we'd also just to get people to understand that there's always a reason to come back. Many people say, well, I came 5 years ago. And if you came 5 years ago, then that means you probably have not seen our exhibit, The Struggle Against Lynching Lessons for Today. You haven't seen our figure of Dr. Dorothy Height, or the Lynx International, and Myrtle Tyler Faithful, and Walter White, and Thurgood Marshall, our new Thurgood Marshall. And so there's always
they're exhuming the body, and
right,
you have the story.
We have the story. We've had the story of Emmett Till since 1994. when we unveiled our exhibit, And a Little Child Shall Lead Them, Black Youth in the Struggle, where we talk about the struggles of an Emmett Till and how his death helped to spark the civil rights movement in a way that no single event might have. Or children out there on the front lines of battle during the civil rights marches and movement, facing the water hoses and the billy clubs and the attack dogs. Or children in the Soweto youth who were fighting to make South Africa free. Or children in slavery, a little child from Maryland named Cripple Caesar, who lost his arms and legs to frostbite during slavery, but was so determined to be free that he managed to escape slavery even though he had no hands and legs. So children who have been called upon to sit down, sit in the face of and fight against those forces of evil that would oppress us all as human beings.
And of course, Don Douglas's lineage goes back to Frederick Douglass.
Absolutely.
What can we say about Frederick Douglass here at this museum?
Frederick Douglass was one of going back to our very beginning in 1983, and actually 1980 when we started our traveling exhibit, the Martin's Wax Exhibition of Great Afro-Americans.
I remember that.
And our Frederick Douglass was one of the first four figures that we had, and it was damaged, and we got another Frederick Douglass, and it just did not do for me, and didn't have the passion that first Frederick Douglass figure did. So my husband created a huge mask, and sometime this year, and I'd really like to talk to you and your family about this, we'd like to unveil a new Frederick Douglass that symbolizes that first Frederick Douglass that we had as part of our traveling exhibit.
Yeah, I know Frederick IV would greatly, he probably be right on board.
I'm sure he would.
Definitely. He's so hard to get a hold of.
Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to give out Frederick Douglass IV's telephone number. No, we won't. But come right back and find out what's happening on Spotlight on the Great Blacks in Wax Museum. We'll be right back.
That was good.
Yeah. Welcome back, and we want to talk more about membership to the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, because with membership that helps support this museum and what it does for the community and the people at large. And so could you talk more about what membership has to offer to the people in the community?
Well, our membership program and our membership prices are very reasonable. They start at $20 for an individual membership. I think the most expensive one is about $50 for a family of four, and so you have unlimited admissions to the museum for an entire year. And you get copies of our newsletter, you get invitations to special events, and it is a way of having a little piece of the museum and having a major role in helping us to meet the day-to-day challenges of being an institution.
That's great.
And you have a road show too. You take the museum out to people.
And we started out, Elmer and I, with the 4 wax figures, taking them out on the road, and it's still a part of our tradition. So this year on the road, we'll be in Milwaukee for the NAACP convention, and we're going to unveil 6 wax figures, including Medgar Evers, a figure of Medgar Evers, Merle Evers, Merle Evers Williams, Earl Shinholster, and Gloucester Curran. So let me modify that. 4 wax figures in Milwaukee. Then we're going to be in New Orleans at the AME Zion Church Conference, and we're going to unveil wax figures of Bishop James Barrett, the founder, one of the founders and the first bishop of the AME Zion Church, and Mary Talbot Jones, who started their women's missionary movement. Just really everywhere that you can name, somewhere across this nation, you look up and Great Blacks and Wax will be there.
Well, I saw the figure of Walter White at the convention in Philadelphia, the NAACP convention in Philadelphia, and it was so lifelike. I mean, I started to ask the man for $1. I mean, and you know something, you did something recently at Southwest Airlines, didn't you?
We were a part of the Southwest Airlines Adopt a Pilot program. And this program is nationwide, and it introduces children to the idea of an airline as a career. And for many children who've never ridden on a plane or who've never met a pilot. So they adopted Pilot Bo Miller of Southwest Airlines. We had a ceremony in which they read the certificate adopting him into the West Side Elementary School program, and they had a number of just really enriching activities. They went to DC to the Aviation Museum. They had a closing ceremony in which they received certificates themselves. They came to the museum. We took our exhibit of Guy Bluford, the first African American to fly in space as a part of the NASA program. We talked to them about Bessie Coleman, whose wax figure we have in the museum, and Ronald McNair, who died in the Challenger incident, whose wax figure we have in the museum. We also took our wax figure of General Daniel Chaffee James of the Tuskegee Airmen.
I was going to mention Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes.
A lot of people nowadays, I find, tend to forget about those folks.
Exactly.
You know, and I've joined a gun club, the 10th Cavalry Gun Club, and they're coming up with a Juneteenth.
Doing some wonderful things at Southwest Airlines' new opening at the Baltimore Washington International Airport, which is now being renamed. And Thurgood Marshall.
And we had our wax figure of Thurgood Marshall at that opening.
Well, see, that's what I love about you. You will go to an airport to promote the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, but you got all kinds of points of interest that people can enjoy once they get here. You mentioned the Civil War and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. The Buffalo Soldiers. I just found out that in the Buffalo Soldiers, there was one known reported female Buffalo soldier. Can you tell us more about her?
Yeah, her name was, her given name was Kathy Williams, but she signed up for the Civil War as William Kathy. And we had a masquerade ball a few years ago, and I went as William Kathy, aka Kathy Williams, and told the story of her enlistment in the Civil War, and all of these women who served as nurses. Harriet Tubman, who was a spy for the Union Army. Women who helped feed the army. If it's true that an army, something
lives on its belly,
and all those women or women who followed the soldiers because they had husbands and sons there. They were trying to escape the tyranny of the South, trying to find out what is this thing called freedom that is being pursued through the Civil War. And so it's just really an interesting aspect of our history that we know very little about.
And that's what I love about your museum. You tell the whole truth. There were blacks who owned slaves. And you know something I recently heard? There were blacks who fought for the Confederacy in the Civil War.
Yes, there were.
Where can you get the whole truth?
Exactly.
Right here.
Yeah, definitely. And I understand that when slaves were freed, not all of them found out until months, years later, and now there's Juneteenth that is being celebrated as an acknowledgement of freedom of slaves.
Right.
Right, and many people don't know that the illegal trade in slaves, if you can call trading slaves legal, but even after the Civil War and after the Emancipation, you had pirating going on. So there was slave trading up until the early 1900s. And so many people think that 1865, the Civil War was over, and that was the end of it. But you had out in the waters pirate ships who were still taking people as slaves, and many of the slaves who were taken after the Civil War had never been slaves during slavery. So just many aspects of this that people just really don't know.
So this means we're not going to get that 40 acres and a mule?
No. Not today.
I don't think so.
And there have been so many scams with people paying money to get their 40 acres and a mule, even recently. So, but we're not. Let me tell the audience.
Look right into the camera and say this.
Not it.
No. Well, Dr. Martin, what's new at the museum? Talk about more of that new to bring the people back who've been here one time.
Well, we're always adding to our wax figure collection. We're always taking something that we have currently and tweaking it a little bit. And what I hear people who come back again and again say is that I came once and I focused on this. I came back again and I said, well, I didn't see this the last time, because it's sort of a process. The first time you come, you're probably going to look at the bigness of things, the wax figures, because they kind of jump out. Well, I won't say jump out, but they get your attention.
Okay.
And so you're looking at the grander things, the slave ship and so forth. Come back again, and then you begin to look at the details. Someone was saying, as she began to look at the lynching exhibit and realizing that people took trophies, and that there was a certain almost quasi-normalcy to this insane thing of lynching, where you go into someone's home and they've got their nice little medal saying I'm a fine upstanding citizen, so the Kiwanis medal and maybe the usher's badge, and then an eyeball, as a which was a trophy in the same way that your Kiwanis medal might be, and that she didn't see any of that and didn't make that kind of connection before, but having seen the museum and coming back for her third time, then that you can focus on the little details, and you can look at the exhibits and find that there is something on the wall that you didn't see because you were so busy taking in the totality of it, that you then begin to go back and look at the finer details of it, and you get just as much from that aspect of the story. And I think that's the way you have to do this museum. Yeah.
What is the most popular exhibit here?
The slave ship exhibit is the exhibit that people are going to go out and talk about. And they're going to talk about different aspects of it. Children talk about the fact that there were children on the slave ship, and we as adults kind of miss that sometimes. I didn't really think about it until someone who brought a Girl Scout troop here talked about on the way back. Her troop was talking about the fact that there were children on the slave ship, and then it hit me. The next most powerful and compelling exhibit is the lynching exhibit, the Struggle Against Lynching Lessons for Today. It has an adult parental advisory, but I find that many groups will take their youth into it because the idea is that these kids get caught up in so much virtual violence on the computers and all around them and so forth, and they want them to understand that there's nothing virtual about this kind of violence. There's nothing virtual about violence, and that here's a clear example of the consequences of violence. So that you get almost desensitized with all of the images, the media images and so forth of violence, and so they want them to understand that there is a consequence to that act. In the lynching exhibit, our Boulevard of Broken Dreams, where we my late husband Elmer has the sign, "Now we lynch ourselves," through homicide and AIDS and drugs and all of those things that serve to tear us apart as a community and as a people. Again, very powerful messages here. We're a museum that insists that you not be passive. And if you can come in this museum and be passive, then we've got some work to do.
Okay, great. And so.
Well, on that note, I tell you, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Definitely.
So this is an education that our young people need. So if you haven't decided to visit the the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, do it. All right, and we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more of this fascinating interview with Dr. Joanne Martin, the founder of the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum.
Okay.
Martin, do you have any closing thoughts for our viewers?
Well, I'm thankful that we've had the opportunity to tell all of the history that we tell, that we've been in this city and state for 22 years trying to do what we do, and that our visitors come from all over the country and all over the world. And I just want to thank the many, many people who visit the museum.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving us such a warm and information-filled place to bring our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, our Girl Scout groups, Boy Scout groups.
Everybody, because it's open to everybody in the community, whether you're black, white, red, whatever. You are definitely welcome to learn about the history.
And this is John Carrington.
And I'm Dawn Douglas.
And we're here talking to Dr. Joanne Martin, one of the founders of the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, on her television show, which of course she's the second guest on, Spotlight on the Great Blacks and Wax Museum. And Dr. Martin, let's say goodbye to all of our viewers, because they're coming back.
Yes.
Remember, what did we say? Y'all come back.
back.
Y'all come on back.
Y'all come back here.
Bye-bye.